both of you on taking on this project. I know it was not easy and it's beautiful, so I want to thank you for that. The book, Die My Love, is actually, the film Die My Love is based on the novel Metate Amor by the Argentine writer Ariana Horvitz. Jennifer, I know this book had a very passionate champion named Martin Scorsese. What was the first thing he told you about his vision for what this book could be as a film?
I think, I don't remember the conversation, but, I remember having it. I don't remember the details of it, but I blocked it out. But he was clearly very impassioned, and then when I read it, it was easy to understand why. It was a really, really singular character, really powerful, so dynamic, and Ariana Horowitz, the author, I feel like she managed to do something that is really hard to do, which is, especially with somebody in a character that's in the throes of any kind of depression, but I walked away with the impression that there's nothing wrong with Grace, there's something wrong with the world.
And for those of us who haven't read the book, is it a first-person narrative, and how is it told that lent itself to what we saw on screen?
Yeah, it's all from the first person's perspective, which I struggled with how to figure out how it would be a good movie because it's all the characters' inner dialogue. But it's poetry, it's like there's a statement and then there's breath in between while you kind of project your feelings onto that. And Lyn is the only poet that I know of, that's making movies. That is what she does. She prose and pauses and this unflinching, fearless, emotional dive into something like that's all Lyn. So she was the only person we thought of.
Well, it's a perfect segue to my question for Justine, which was, what was your approach to pitching the Scottish director Lyn Ramsay on the project and getting her to say yes?
Oh,
which I know is not an easy process either.
No, but we had to seduce her for like 8 or 9 months via email. I think Lyn is the kind of filmmaker who will not come aboard a project unless she is, I don't want to say possessed by the material, but she can't come onto something that's not dragging her into it. So I think we sent her the material, we spoke about comps, we spoke about the themes and the ideas, it was an ongoing dialogue over email.
What were your comps? I'm curious.
Ooh, hers were Repulsion, Jean Dielman, those were the 2 major ones.
Okay.
Obviously, Woman Under the Influence. We talked a lot about motherhood, our own experiences in relationships, our experiences as women. So it was sort of like a sprawling dialogue and this kind of beautiful correspondence we had.
And what were her main motivations? Was it the subject matter? Was it her ability, to your point, to connect to the material enough in order to want to tell the story?
I think she needed to find her way in. Jen nailed it. The book is a stream of consciousness, so it's a tough thing to adapt. And if you're really going to honor the material, which she did, it means that you're going to make a very unorthodox, brazen film. And yeah, I think she just had to find her way in.
Beautiful work, honestly. And I think to your point, there aren't a lot of poets who are making movies. I think a lot of poets think they're making movies, but she is someone who really, really is doing that. And Jennifer, you said something really interesting recently about Lyn. In thinking about directing, you said a lot of male directors tend to, quote, over-direct. And I've thought a lot about what that means. And it made me think of Deborah Granick, your director of Winter's Bone. 15 years ago, Winter's Bone, hard to imagine. Yes. The first Oscar nomination. And I think for me, when I see women direct, and this isn't everyone, just what I've witnessed, they create the environment in which people can do their best work, as opposed to do this, do that, do this. So I'm wondering, how does Lyn fit into that ethos, and how did she free you up to do this right work? Because this really isn't, I know you underplay the work that you do, because that's who you are, but there is a lot of work going on here. And also, can we silence devices, please? Thank you.
Right.
Thank you so much.
I got asked, because I Lyn is she's not a micromanager, and so somebody asked, yesterday, like, well then, how did she get you to do that, or something, and it's, I feel like it is implying whether or not a director is like either giving notes or not, or something, and she's building a world, and she built this character. We were in conversations, we were in dialogues for years about who Grace is and the circumstances surrounding her and what that means and how she would react to them. And then, you get the other actors and they start, Rob starts making his Jackson, which changes my performance a little bit. He's giving me different energy in Sissy. I guess she does so much work to lead up to the moment, and then when the moment arrives, she kind of recedes a little bit and becomes more observational. And sometimes it's scary, like when she sets up the camera and it's just like, okay, you're alone in the house.
That must
like,
be terrible.
Yeah, like, go do something, like you're losing your mind, and I'm like, oh, okay.
So there is a comfort sometimes to having someone.
Oh, totally, yeah. I mean, it's a lot harder to like improv. You would prefer the scene to just be written and then you memorize it and then you say it out loud. You don't really have to like turn your thinking cap on too much. But yeah, when somebody kind of, she gives you, enough to get you there, and then she still takes away enough to leave you a little scared.
I imagine that was very important for this part. And Justine, I had the pleasure of speaking to Celine's song earlier this year, and she was talking about making movies requires guardian angels. And for her, Christine Vachon had been a guardian angel of hers on her projects. Who would you say is someone who acted in that way for this production, who supported you early on besides Martin Scorsese? You. Are you the angel of the scenario? No, it's you.
I mean,
you're the guardian angel.
I think
No.
I think it was our job to be the guardian angels. That was our job, I think, listen, you got 1,000 jobs as a producer, but primarily it's to protect the process. If you're gonna hire somebody like Lyn, who's so particular and idiosyncratic and singular and powerful, you want to create a space where she can be exactly who she is, and Jen can be exactly who she is. So, of all the, you can ramble on about the job, but it really comes down to that, just being hyper protective of everybody. And sustaining a setting where what Jen just explained can happen, where there can be room for freedom and spontaneity and experiment.
Did you talk to the author along the way during this process, Ariana?
We didn't.
You didn't?
We did not. Did you?
Yeah.
I did not. And I think Lyn was nervous to get a little too close to the author. But Ariana's been very involved in the last couple months and has been traveling to festivals with us. And
Yeah.
I'm sure she's thrilled.
She's the best. She's so excited.
I'm sure she never expected this story to have the life that it's having on screen. It's very, very special for her. So, Jennifer, you talked about working with the wonderful Robert Pattinson, and I was also intrigued to learn that, like yourself at the time, he was somewhat of a new parent, and he and his partner had just given birth recently. And I was so curious how that shared dynamic of caretaking and this raw feeling contributed to not only your working relationship, but to the performances we see, because I know the vulnerability that people feel, like, oh, I need to be somewhere else, and you're yearning to take care of that child. And then in the scene, you're yearning to take care of the child. So tell me about that, real life inspiration.
It added so much, it brought so much, because, Rob and I are partners in real life, not to each other, to our respective partners, and parents. And so you can bring so much of that information into the dialogue. Like when you have those kind of experiences, that's what adds dimensions into the characters and into the dialogue. It's not literal, you're not saying this happened the other day, so you should put that in there, but it's more of like, we know what it takes in order to have a functioning, healthy relationship. So when you have that information, you can flip it upside down and say, so to deprive you of that, to refuse to say sorry, to refuse to admit my part in this, and to continue to blame you, you know, like you know where that will go. So, what is so funny?
The bad bitch is giggling in the back.
Somebody
Like,
eat it.
Mom?
And yeah, and like being new parents, I mean, it was a similar thing. It was, I mean, Rob had a new baby, you know, so he was flying back for the weekends, and, you know, my kid was 2 and I was pregnant. But even having that perspective from the child of, you know, that's information that I have now, that like, I know how important my energy is for their tiny little, you know, systems, and how reliable and consistent you need to be. So I knew that, and so I could flip it a little bit for, yeah, I don't know.
It's interesting to think about the roles you've had in the last 15 years. You've played, for being still so young, you played a lot of maternal roles, which is usually a shift that happens as an actor gets older. It's like, okay, now she's a mom character. Where you played, even in Winter's Bone, you were your sibling's caretaker. What interests you in exploring the dynamic between caretaker and the charge, and these little humans' lives are in your hands? What interests you in that?
Power.
Power.
And utter control.
I laughed in second.
I forgot about your Joker.
That's why people become parents, isn't it? Just to have power over
Yeah,
them.
exactly, yeah, because they do exactly what you told them to. I think I've been asked this before, and I've tried to kind of analyze it. I think I left home at a very young age, and didn't have a very consistent kind of adult figure, or, you know, it was in and out. I mean, I had great parents, but they weren't physically around all the time, you know. So I think maybe it had something to do with that, but I haven't gotten to the complete, I don't know.
Sure. Or it's just interesting stuff to do, and interesting stories. That can also just be fun.
Yeah, I mean, it is at the face of it. I mean, a woman becoming a mother, going through this gigantic change. I mean, that's obviously going to be an interesting fertile ground for storytelling.
Actually, and on that note, this season is just an incredible array of stories that center on what I would call either the horrors of parenthood or the trials of parenthood. Your film, If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You, The Chronology of Water, The Testament of Vanity, and Hamlet. This is an interesting time to have all these movies emerge at the same time that touch on shades of these themes. And Justine, I'm curious how you think this film complements these conversations that are going on. And by the way, not surprisingly, all of these films are made by women.